We're good, John.
So he was rightfully. Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Mr. Hagan?
Here.
Mrs. Humphries? Mrs. Krupko?
Here.
Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mr. Swift?
Here. The adoption of the meeting minute, the adoption of the meeting agenda.
That's yours. That was mine. Sorry.
Do you want a motion?
Do we have a motion?
Yes,
Sorry.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
So,
Ms. Krupko?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Swift?
yes.
Pass 4-0.
Mark, it's in your folder. It's in your folder. Oh, okay. Thank you.
New business. Capital Improvement Fund discussion, Mr. Swisher and Dr. Main.
Okay, so we have this work session tonight to discuss our capital improvement fund, our 070 account. We did have that meeting last week. I get my weeks confused. I think it was last week with Alan Harold. He kind of discussed the settlement with that came through with the Nexus Pipeline money and the money that we would be receiving in back taxes. And then obviously he said moving forward there would be a 5 and a 3 and a 3% based on interest that he had to calculate. And then at the time he said soon, come August at the latest, he would have final numbers for what we would expect to receive on an annual basis, moving forward since the settlement is in. So on that note, we wanted to have that kind of hard concrete number and have the county auditor come in and discuss that. Then we had this work session designed to basically look at what's in the 070 account, and then we wanted to come with some recommendations moving forward with some numbers about some projects that we think the board might want to think about moving forward for our district. So I'm just going to kind of give you the numbers right now so you kind of have that discussion. So that's not in your packet that I have in front of you, but I just want to kind of talk through the numbers. So you guys might want to write these down so we have an idea where we're at. So our total balance right now, currently in the 070 account, is $1,673,698.61.
That's unencumbered.
That's unencumbered. That's the balance. That's the unencumbered balance. Well, let me phrase that. That is the total balance. What we have encumbered for next year, obviously, is we have 2 lease payments that we give on the current lease payment for the projects that we had at the elementary buildings. So the total of those 2 lease payments next year is going to be $707,313.45. So we have encumbered that already out of that $1.6 million. Leaving us right now in the account unencumbered at $966,385.16. As we know, with Mr. Harold coming and speaking with us, we know that we would be, barring any appeal from any county auditor, the expectation is, as he said, to get payment in full and back money sometime around October. We would get $1,758,586. Once that money comes in, which due to the resolution the previous board has had in place, that money would go into the 070 account for capital improvements. That would leave us with $2,724,971.16 unencumbered. Now, I preface this still, and I had a conversation with Mr. Hagan this week, and the Pipeline Coalition sent an email out basically reiterating what Mr. Harold said, that there's 60 days from the the June 23rd is, there's 60 days for any county to appeal the settlement. He was not one that was planning on appealing. And I'm not sure if he clarified this, so I need to clarify it. And the county and the Pipeline Coalition clarified it in an email. If any county auditor appeals it, then it holds up all the money for all the counties, period.
There's seven counties involved?
I think so. So currently, there's a possibility, and it states in the email, that there's one county auditor that may appeal. That may. Okay, so I guess we're just gonna, we're on that wait of that 60-day time frame. So if I do the math on 60 days, that would be August 23rd would be the day that, if we don't get any information, we would follow up from the county auditor that we're in the clear, then the expectation would be we moving forward for that 1.7 some million dollars. But we're still kind of under this window right now, I would say for at least another 30 some days that there's a possibility. So Josh and I had a conversation about that, and then obviously we checked into that, but the email did come today too, so from some verification.
Okay.
So with that, I kind of took only the hard numbers, all right? We did not talk about the interest that's still due, the 5% and the 3% and the 3%, which is, based on what we brought in. Patty and I did do some calculations moving forward, just as in this, and, basically looking at the settlement money, we can, what I can tell you is, so let's just say we get payments from Nexus money in January, February, twice a year. So January, February, and then we get payments in the fall. All right, so moving forward based on the settlement, as long as there's no auditor willing to, go against the settlement, we're looking at moving forward, at least this coming year, and probably previous years out. There's a small depreciation factor, but roughly we can tell you around $2 million plus a year.
Question for Patty, or whoever has the answer, I guess. The 1.7 million that's coming from the Nexus Pipeline settlement, that does not include the payment that they're going to send as their regular full payment, correct?
It does.
Oh, it does include
It
that?
does include, and all of those columns, when it said owed this year, owed this year, owed this year.
That's what was a little confusing about it, and I didn't get a chance to ask that last week. So we're really only getting what is our payment normally, about 490,000 they've been sending us, but they've been sending us all sorts of different, because they sent us,
And they have.
I actually
it's-
got an email today, and I was able to go through the spreadsheet, and at this time, they have paid fall what the settlement would be for this whole calendar year. So for fall, we'll get $887,750. And then in addition, we get the small piece of PI, which is $32,341. So that will leave us with still collecting about 838,000, or, 838,000.
What she's saying is, remember when Mr. Harold was here, he said,
Yeah.
if the pipeline was smart, knowing the settlement was there, this last round that came in, they kind of knew it was coming, so they just kind of preemptively paid.
The
what
early
the-
collection.
They just did the early collection on that, so they wouldn't have to pay as
and
much
that's
for
what
the
we got
settlement.
earlier this year?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we're going to get the second payment, which will equal the settlement valuation for this year. And then they'll have to continue to pay the back pay, which is about 838, which is left.
Okay.
So what will we be expecting as a regular payment going forward?
So a regular payment, go ahead, Patty, if you want, or I can give them the exact number.
That's kinda
We
where
can
I was at.
expect.
Thank you.
We can expect about 2 million going forward.
A year?
A year, yes.
So $2
Remember
million
that
payments.
if they do some additions or some upgrades, that will change the valuation a bit. But I'm safe saying about 2 million.
So that'll be next year, and then it'll depreciate from there.
And the depreciation is not much, so she has a 3-year depreciation. It still stays around 2 million. Because technically, when we say 2 million, we're talking about what we collect for the permanent improvement levy, because you understand you're collecting off your levied amount. So, you know, if you're just talking strictly Nexus, it's about 1.994 million. And then the PI levy being as small as it is, it's roughly about 72,000, which equates to a little over $2 million.
Okay.
So we say that when we're collecting in on that aspect of it. And those are the numbers that Alan will have precisely down to the penny, but Patty was able to basically look at each settlement year and then basically do the math and then break that down for the next 3 years.
Okay.
And we'll make any adjustments as we get them from the county auditor in December of each year.
And since we're on the topic of the 070, and it does tie into the levy with the PI amount, I wanted, obviously, the 070 is our capital improvement fund, our 003 is our permanent improvement fund. We have a total balance currently in our permanent improvement fund, our 003 account, of $1,058,696.68. We currently have encumbered roughly 50,000, and leaving an unencumbered balance currently at roughly $1,008,696.68. Now, there will be more encumbrances coming because our PI, we have multiple encumbrances that come throughout the year, but I'm just telling you where we're at with that balance when we're talking about, you know, specific improvements and where we may or may not pull it out of depending on what type of improvement it is.
Okay, so the total number that we're looking at working with between 070 and 003 looks to be around
3.7 million.
3.7 million. Okay, and that includes the Nexus settlement,
Yes, sir.
assuming it comes.
Assuming there's no appeal from any auditor. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So on that note, if you turn your page in there, I kind of put these in order for the board, so the next thing you should see is, this was kind of older, so I kind of just made a copy of this. So this was either something that was made with Mrs. Main and Dr. Mike, but it had like a Marlington Local School District 5-year project plan that obviously I will take a better look at and tweak, but I want to kind of give you an idea since, you know, being in here a few weeks and taking a look at this. If you look under district, you see annual expenses, you see, you know, annual asphalt, annual repairs. You know, we roughly average about $10,000 a year. That's not going to change. It could go up, it could go down, but those are things we need to take care of that are just going to be normal expenditures in my mind when you're talking about parking lots, you're talking about gravel. It varies at each building. So I just wanted to let you know I kind of highlighted that for myself, knowing that those are expenditures that are just going to continue to happen. Under equipment, what I can tell you is the van replacement's already been kind of encumbered. So that's already, we already paid for that. So it's not even into the money that we're talking about because you guys already approved the van replacement. We have that. Under transportation, the buses there, those are partly grant funded. Those are already been approved and paid for. We already have that encumbered and taken care of. So that's not even included in the money we're talking about. I just want to tell you that we've moved forward with that. As a board, you guys took care of that, which was good. Under the high school, obviously, we're going to be talking about the roof tonight. So that's part of my conversation with you. Under horticulture, we're going to be talking about the roof. With the rooftop units at the horticulture building, basically, we got parts. We were looking at replacing those things right now. They're old. They're 20-plus years old, but we were able to find parts, Al and Rayo, and they were able to get those things up and running. So right now, I'm just going to leave it with they're up and running.
So when you say year 2 in this column, that's next fiscal year, starting July of 2023?
That I'm not 100% who made this.
Okay.
All right, so I just kind of wanted to go through what we've kind of addressed or going to plan on addressing and what's already encumbered, because it gives you some, this had to be some conversation within the board, so I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. Under Lexington, I highlighted just asbestos because we're going to talk about that tonight. I want to be frank, we are. The wastewater treatment plant, we're going to talk about a little bit tonight. Obviously, that's all I plan on, more addressing tonight when you're talking about big ticket items in the district. But this is in here. I'm going to take a good look at this after tonight and kind of, as we hold a buildings and grounds meeting or a finance meeting, kind of maybe reapproach these a little bit differently so it makes a little more sense to me, only because I'm coming at it from a different viewpoint. But I did want to put it in there. And we can come back, and if you have questions, if you're thinking about it, just jot them down, or interrupt me anytime. The next page is jobs. And this is just an ongoing thing that I have a conversation.
Go back one.
Oh, you're good.
Athletics, on page 2, you have $25,000 highlighted for that.
Okay, so we usually,
What is that?
so every year that I'm aware of, there's been out of the permanent improvement fund, the board has allocated $25,000 towards athletics. And that's for permanent improvements for different types of it, for field maintenance and things that they do. So if you want a more specific breakdown on, as we spend that money, I have no problem with that. I can just tell you that's what has been a yearly approval for the athletics in the past, and that's just what they continue to move forward.
Okay.
I asked Al and Rayo just some general jobs that they are kind of working on an ongoing basis, because I know sometimes we get the thing that, what's our bit maintenance crew doing on a bit, kind of looking at from things that, these are not when I want to say large, huge jobs, but they're jobs that they're trying to take care of themselves. If they can't, then we got to farm out or get bids, depending on the price. So you can kind of get a look there at Washington, Lexington, Marlboro, and if you have any questions of what those is, I'd be happy to answer them. The Washington removed scrap, that's because we took tables out a year ago and put new tables in the cafeteria, and the scrap was sitting in the back. I mean, we got to remove it, but we had to take them apart because we get money for the metal versus the wood, so it just took a little time. The shut-off valves in our drinking fountains, our basement window, we are going to repair that this summer. Okay, there's just a little retaining wall like you have like for a basement window into Mr. Dillon's office downstairs. It's a small repair, a couple $1,000s, but we are going to repair it because it's not safe for kids when they're walking through there. Baseball benches, rebuilt sand shed. If you guys don't know what that is, obviously or salt shed. We do have to add salt for the hard water. Rayo built a shed years ago because carrying those heavy bags downstairs are very difficult. So we have a chute that goes through down in there. So it's falling apart. So we're just doing that. RTU filter change. Those are the rooftop units. We need to change those filters. That's what keeps those going. So that's it's very important. And tablets on the mini splits. If you see that, that's basically so you don't get gunk and build up into there. There's I don't want to say what type of tablet it is. Josh, you might know, but it just basically is.
Probably just chlorine.
That's what I thought it was. I wouldn't want to say that without being accurate, but a chlorine tablet that kind of breaks down the gunk from building up and keeps them
Bacteria.
running better. It's preventative maintenance is what it is. That's kind of where we're at when we're talking about these things with our maintenance crew. Lexington, again, the rooftop units, the tablets, the coils on the rooftop units, the leach bed, out there. We're trying to keep up with that right now with our wastewater treatment plant. Marlboro,
Graders?
craters. That's our verbiage, but there's different ways to do it. Part of it's a parking lot. We got a lot of
Okay.
holes in our parking lot. All right, that's what we're talking about.
Chuck
So,
holes.
I just wanted to make sure there weren't sinkholes or.
no, there's some other concerns out there, but not,
Meteors.
the craters we're talking about are just the fact that it's just some wear and tear that we need to address through that. Those are things that we're going to address. Marlboro's, there's just some cafeteria issues, disconnects, secure basketball hoops, some drop ceiling, another kitchen, some baseboard heat, again, the coils. And these are things that the principals and the custodians kind of come up with and talk through. There's other issues outside the school. These are just things that are always ongoing. I want to make you aware of that. They're kind of, as they get to them, they're not, some people say, well, you never get to these small items. Well, a lot of times our maintenance crew has bigger items to get to first, but these are always on our list, and we kind of talk about them at our 18 meetings, and then we just kind of keep addressing them and adding to the list or crossing off. And this is new for Alan Rayo because they do attend our meetings now. We kind of talk through these things with the teams. This is something that's been ongoing. Middle school, again, the rooftop units, we were going to replace the hot water tank there. Again, the coils on the rooftop units. Again, really, those rooftop units are heating and cooling. Those are a big deal at the middle school. Any of those go down where we got some problems. High school, we want to replace both the rooftop units over 200. They haven't been done. They're roughly about $5,000 a piece, but it's just a discussion that I'm going to be talking about moving forward, for the high school. The rest of the items on that list we're going to kind of just address. But I just want to give you an idea of the, some of the conversations we're having with our maintenance crew. All right, getting into some of the big projects here, which is what we're talking about tonight. So, in my mind, when we're talking about major projects, we're talking about things that are probably $400,000, $500,000, $1 million or more to look at. So when we looked at the district as a whole, we have 3 major, what I would say major projects that need to be addressed in this district at some point in time. And we've been talking about these for years. So I think we have an opportunity now with the Capital Improvement Fund to start addressing some of these issues and moving forward. So the first one's obviously the wastewater treatment plant at Lexington. Okay, this has been an ongoing conversation. What you do have is a quote from late 20, May 26th of 20. So this is a few years old, but I want to give you an exact quote because I have a hard time having people come out and give quotes if we're not going to move forward because it's time. And I can get a more updated quote due to inflation within the last 2 years. But if you look on the back side of that quote, at that time in May of 2020, for them to basically come in and re-engineer and excavate and add what needed to be done at Lexington, you're looking at $395,752. It's roughly $400,000. Now, obviously, I believe that number would be higher today, significantly higher. I don't know what significantly higher is or not, and I'm not going to speculate. It could be exactly that figure. I don't know. The EPA has been out. We're allowed to continue to function as long as we're maintaining what we're doing. It is not a recommendation at my time to address this issue. We are maintaining currently the sanitation plan for Lexington. Not that we shouldn't start saving money for this project, but I want to be clear that it wouldn't be a recommendation of my time to address this need immediately. Now, I know Mr. Hagan and Mr. Swift brought to my attention that there is a project that could be, I think it was in the Canton Repository, but I think it's known there's going to be I want to say a sanitation project through the Stark County Waste Management near Barkus Acres, and also a little bit out, maybe somewhere out in Atwater. So we talked to Lexington Township. They said they really have no part in that. Okay, so our next, multiple phone calls was out to Stark County. We did speak to Jim Troik about this, and it's called the Fruitland Park Allotment Sewer Project is what it's actually called. And it's using some of the American Rescue Funds, but he said it's really a small project. How did he? The project was small in diameter. It's using a small diameter cutter system that would not handle a school population. So basically what they're doing is a small population, but he said based on current funds, he can't even say with final approval that that's even going to move forward, but that's what he's hoping for. I mean, that's kind of the tentative way it is. I mean, he's aware now that we are obviously looking at a project, at Lexington at some point in time in the future. So he's going to keep us in mind when we're looking at different types of grant funds and things and talk about that. But there's no current way into that small cutter system that we could run and handle a pipeline from Lexington into that for sewer.
Where's that exactly located, or would be located?
You know what, I didn't write that down. I can tell you there's multiple streets in Barkus Acres. And if anybody can speak up, Josh,
Julie, Nellabrook, Helpman, and then there's another separate one out off of, what is it, Josh? Indiana, Pennsylvania?
I haven't looked at it in such a long time.
Okay.
So it's basically Vine Street, that area where those streets come out, between Vine and.
Yeah, between
Beeson?
Vine and Beeson, and then Barkus Acres.
So, you know, the question is, when I originally reached out, Al and I did was, you know, if that project's moving forward, can we have a conversation moving forward, since it's still a year or two out? You know, what would the cost be in collaboration with the county or us, you know, to possibly run, you know, we didn't know where it was running to, and he said it's just their own small system. So that kind of stopped the conversation a little bit, but didn't end the conversation. So he gave me some recommendations right from there, but that's where we're kind of at right now. But I know Josh and Jonathan asked me to look into that, so that's what I did on that end.
Thank you.
So,
What's that?
is there any questions? I mean, I would not, I'm going to kind of move through these and then come back and we can rediscuss. So the second, if you go on the next page, obviously, this is something that I do think we need to consider. So obviously, the roof at the high school's been a conversation. We shouldn't have a conversation unless you have hard numbers, so we had to get some quotes. So we had a company we're in the co-op with the county, so I wanted to get 3 different quotes within our co-op. So when the company came out that kind of sets up the quotes for these companies, basically says our roof is enormous. So my first question is, can you get this roof done in one time? Could we just get this done in a summer? He said, absolutely not. He goes, let me be very clear. This roof at the high school cannot be done in one summer. He goes, he said, I would honestly say it's a 3-phase project. Okay, he might be able to squeeze it in 2 phases, but he wouldn't risk that. He said, because you have days that I can give you in the contract, but that doesn't, your weather. So I'm going to go through those. So I got 3 different quotes. They're all for, so if you go, there's the first quote is from a Team Craft Roofing. They're all in our co-op. Again, you can see, as you read the quote, you'll see a base quotation and a number. So the first number was, they said $974,500. And they have, and if you look at D, they said the number of work days is 50. Okay, so that's what they said. Now remember, this is for one phase of the roof, and I'm at Marlin, and they're talking about roof 12, 13, 18, and our Hort building. I had them add the Hort building because the Hort building roof's not good. So I'll give you a picture of this in a second, which is 4 pages back if you're curious.
And all three companies gave the same, agreed that it's a phased project?
Yes.
And, okay.
So the second quote is from a Triangle Roofing Corporation, and they were at about $1,084,000. So they were, you know, roughly in the same ballpark. They have 35 number of work days, and then they obviously broke it down to the wood blocking and nailer replacement for $3 per linear square foot, and then obviously $2,000 per drain for roof replacement and the steel decking repair and replacement. The third quote is from Centimark Corporation. They came in a little bit higher than both. They were about $1.128 million. So their wood blocking and nailer replacement was right around $4 a linear foot, so $1 more than Triangle. They were the same on the roof jamb, and their steel decking was a little less than what Triangular Roofing was. And their number of work days were 30, very similar, 30, 35. On the 4th page, you see what the phase is. I gave a colored thing. So we're talking about roof 12, 13, 18, and then obviously the Hort building. You know where the Hort building is. I didn't draw that over there. So when I say phase 1, that's the only quote I got so far. All right, because they did not get a chance. It takes time. But our recommendation was phase 1 because the phase, that's covering the bulk of where a lot of our leaks are right now.
And that
Okay?
covers where the computer system.
It does.
Okay.
Okay, so the wood blocking and nail replacement and the roof drain replacement and the steel decking repair and replacement, those vary a little bit on each one,
They do.
but how much of that are we actually going to be I mean, how much of that, how much cost is going to be added by those? It's per
That-
square
that is-
foot
that is
or
in-
per?
That is included in the total cost of the project.
Oh, that's included in the
Yes.
total cost?
Yes, that's based on their bidding.
Okay.
They just broke
sorry.
that down for us. I apologize.
That's okay.
So since these three are in our co-op, which is a good thing, they've been kind of vetted on that aspect of it with the co-op that we have with the county ESC. This is going to be in my mind, one of the two recommendations that I'm going to make for the board. Not that, obviously, we're not voting on that tonight, but as we move forward in our discussion, that, as you talk about this tonight, if we're going to, when I spoke to the company that ran the quotes, I told them, I said, what kind of time frame are we talking about here? He said, the sooner the better. He said, right now, installation's about 10 to 12 months out, is where it's at.
So this is.
This would be a
probably
next summer, yeah.
Okay.
So if it would be something that the board would consider as a moving forward for a phase one, this would be something I would look at moving on our agenda in August. Now, which makes this a
Yeah.
very interesting time frame here, because August 23rd is kind of like our happy or sad day for the 070 account, because it'll be if, depending on if any county auditor chooses to, go against the settlement. Typically, our board meeting's a few days ahead of that when I kind of look at the calendar, but I'm not going to go there yet. I just want to know if, talking with the company, the sooner the better. We could probably get into September. I'm sure that would be fine too, but if it's something that you're saying as a board, this would be something, a good consideration of using some of our capital improvements for, this would be something we would discuss. And then we would obviously look at our three quotes, make a decision from there. I could give you a recommendation of what I feel would be best.
And
Is
said,
number one, I'm sorry, number one on your needs list?
I can't say if it's number one. I can tell you I have two specific needs that I think we could address. It's just a matter of how comfortable we are addressing them.
Okay.
so Centromark is the only one from Ohio?
Yes, sir.
The others are from Pennsylvania and North Carolina?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there another roofing company that is in Ohio?
These are the quotes that I was given from the co-op.
Okay.
If you'd like me looking at that more, I can.
No, just ask to make sure we have an opportunity to use Ohio vendors if we can. But if it's price prohibitive, then there's a reason people go to Walmart.
I'd be more than happy to check into that, though.
Thanks.
Any questions with the three quotes? All right, the next page it's kind of wonky, because it's an Excel sheet that's kind of broken down, but obviously, the largest, the most asbestos in any of our buildings is at Lexington. Okay, so obviously, we had to interrupt education at the end of the last school year due to, a piece of asbestos falling down. The bulk of it's in our ceiling tile. Anytime something cracks, breaks open, we have to call our local asbestos agent, have him come out, give an evaluation, and then obviously we have to have it, cleaned up, properly. And, sometimes it can be something done with Alareo because they have some type of asbestos training, but most of the time it requires some type of minimal shutdown of the district, or at least a building, okay, which interrupts education. We did ask Bill to kind of give a breakdown by room of what it would cost. But if you go all the way to the back page, flip it all the way over, the total engineering and pre-demolition abatement estimate from him was about $400,000, $402,115 to be exact. This would be another recommendation I think we need to take a strong look at. I'm not for interrupting education any more than you guys are. And there's no guarantee. Honestly, undisturbed asbestos is perfectly fine. But we've seen over the last few years, we seem to, at Lexington in particular, seem to be continually having older ceiling tiles fall or crack, which then, disrupts the education process, upsets parents, parents wondering if it's safe or not, no matter what type of explanation we give them. That's very factual and driven. It's still a question in a parent's mind and in teacher's mind and in kids' mind. This would be another, as the two recommendations that I would have as sitting in this chair currently and working with Mrs. Main. These would be the top two recommendations for me, would be looking at the roof and the abatement of Lexington in full.
How much time would be needed to?
This could be done in one summer. Now, we'd obviously have to get bids on that through the co-op, and we could get local bids, because anything over $50,000 we would. So this is just giving you what our local asbestos person, which he would also bid on this project too, but this would give you a pretty good idea. I'm assuming most would come in generally in that range.
And
Now,
this would be next summer?
this would be done next summer. Now, please understand that as that bidding process would come in, if this would be something you'd ask me to look into a little bit more and get actual bids for you, we have a little more time here, a couple months that we could get those bids in and have that conversation. Part of it would be obviously is the aesthetic side of it is they're just coming in and abating. So they're ripping through and cleaning it and doing it. So after that, then you gotta come back in and put drop ceilings in and, make sure your lighting's in the right place. So that's all an additional cost. Okay, so the $400,000 is just getting the building to the point of abatement. There's an additional cost that's going to incur based on what specific rooms that have to be done. So that's and I would then have to come up with that cost for you, and I wouldn't even care to guess. But that's normal. Let's just, then it be done. We're done with it. That building is completely abated and free of asbestos. So those are the two. So if there's any, that's Lexington. Those are the three big things, as I said, that we talked about, was the wastewater treatment, the roof, and then obviously the asbestos at Lexington.
Let me hit that up. To do all three of those projects is $2 million. And what you were saying earlier from our earlier discussion, we have 3.7 million. So we could easily complete all three of those projects and still have $1.7 million left in the bank.
No, it was 2.7, wasn't it?
No, it was 3.
If you count the PI money, it's unencumbered, but there's,
So, okay.
hold that thought.
Okay, I'm just
You're right.
doing
You're
just
100%.
doing math.
I did it. You're good. Hold that thought. The final 2 pages that I have in there, I guess there's 3. I put the 5-year forecast on the backside just for you to have, and you guys have had that multiple times. There's nothing changed in that 5-year forecast. I think these were done, obviously, previous. These are, you see it May 19th, 2020 proposals from Kuhn Restoration. So both these fall under Washington Elementary and one's at Marlboro Elementary. So these items were, and these are by breakdown by the price by what it is. So these are things that I do not recommend currently at this time. Not that they can't be addressed or looked at in the future in more discussion, and because this is a few years old, I want to get into this a little bit more. But the cleaning and sealing, so these are things we're talking about: masonry and stone restoration, joint sealant, lintels that are starting to get old, wicking issues, leak investigations. It varies. So, Kuhn was nice enough to come out and give us that. Same at Marlboro. We were looking at cleaning and sealing again, masonry restoration, joint sealant, deteriorated steel and lintel replacement, cleaning and sealing, masonry restoration, different items, and they kind of have like ballpark. So neither one of these are things that, at least in the last few years, that I know there's been some conversations in our 18 meetings and maybe conversations at board meetings, but none of them I feel is like an emergency at this point that I would say would be a recommendation at this point in time that we would address when we're talking about the roof or the abatement or the wastewater treatment tank. But I wanted to make you aware there were quotes out there for different things, if you haven't seen them. So that's really all I have, because tonight was about the 070. I mean, I'm gonna be very clear, to Jonathan's point, you know, as long as the settlement goes through and the capital improvement, the 070 accounts we have some financial ability to make some betterments to this district that need to be done. And my recommendation, if I was sitting in this chair, would be to abate Lexington next year in full and do phase one of the roof, which would be at a roughly cost of around $1.4 million or more. And then obviously what it would cost to, you know, to do the aesthetics piece of the drop ceiling in that aspect. The only reason I don't recommend doing the wastewater treatment plant right now is because I feel we have the money in there, but I think we hold tight and wait to continue to move forward addressing the minor maintenance issues that we have with that. We'll continue to work with the EPA, then we'll go from there. We know it has to be done, but it wouldn't be I like having that extra money in the capital improvement funds because we don't know. We just don't know. And that's kind of where I'm at with that. Originally, I thought we had to I would have said prior to Mr. Harold coming, we had to maybe look at just the roof or just the abatement. So I had a little bit different discussion. But once we went through the numbers, I think we have an opportunity here to do good at both. Obviously, the little things we're still going to address. You know, don't get me wrong, I'm only talking about major projects, but when we're talking about the retaining wall at Washington that's not safe for kids to walk through, that's a $2,000 or $3,000 project, we're just going to get that done. Gravel issues, you know, potholes, craters, we're going to get that done. We know Lexington has a mini lake that somehow gets back there. I think, Mark, we talked about that, and Josh, we talked about that. You know, that's something I want to look into, but that needs to be addressed. You know, there's a couple different options, I think, there. But those, to me, aren't $400,000 and $500,000 options.
So August, we'll see some recommendation or possible vote on a roof bid or authorized to go to bid. Is that what you're
Yes.
Is that what you're thinking?
I would.
Maybe September, we address the abatement.
Yes. September, October for the abatement, and give me some time to do that, but I would, if the board's okay with that, I'd like to look at getting that on the agenda as soon as possible for the roof, obviously, so we can have some discussion. And if there's anybody that's adamantly against me bringing those recommendations, that's fine, let me know. If I'm sitting in the chair here, whoever that is, that would be what I would say the recommendation would be.
Sounds good.
Any questions, concerns?
Pretty thorough.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Krupko?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mr. Swift?
Yes.
Pass 4-0.
Thumbs up, go ahead.
Okay, we're actually back in session to consider the executive session, recommend the motion of the Marlington Local School Board of Education to recess into executive session pursuant to RC 121.22G1 to consider the employment evaluation of a public employee. All matters discussed in this executive session are designated to a public official and the employees as confidential pursuant to RC 102.01B. Because of the status of the proceedings and/or the circumstances under which the information will be received and preserving its confidentiality is necessary to the proper conduct of government business. Following executive session, no action is expected.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Krupko?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mr. Swift?
Yes.
Pass 4-0.
Okay.
Time in is
What time?
You have to
5:50.
declare the time again.
5:50, I got it.
5:50. 7:11, we are out of executive session.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm like, I think
Motion
it's
to
me.
adjourn the meeting?
We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
I'm going to be quiet this time.
Roll call?
Mr. Swift?
Yes?
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. Krupko?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Okay, we have a time adjourn at 7:11 and a half. 7:12. Thank you, have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dan.